Hello everybody, welcome to Wednesday Night Warrior, a weekly video series on the Constructive Criticism YouTube channel. I'm Spencer, host of Limited Time Only and Constructive Criticism, two podcasts about getting better at Magic the Gathering. Welcome everybody. Sorry we're late this week. I got a new job, and with being a new dad, and new schedule, all kinds of things were crazy, but we are here, and we are going to talk about Week 1 Standard and what it might look like this weekend. So I want to apologize for the difference in audio quality. I got my work computer that I used to record on is gone. I got a new work computer, and some of the things didn't sound right to me, and so this is the best situation I could come up with right now. But I will be getting new audio equipment and just fixing it so that it sounds better again. So thank you everybody for your patience. I really appreciate it. But let's get right into this week's video. So I want to talk about the decks that I think that you can expect week 1 at your local event, whether it's an S or your SCG or your PPTQ, wherever you're going this weekend to play Magic the Gathering. So the decks that I think that you can expect, just hands down, I'm going to go over those first. So first is white-red aggro. Between Thalu's Lieutenant and the new Mimic, I think that you can just expect a lot of this deck. I think people are going to want to play their humans, and they're going to want these lords, and they're going to come at you really hard and attack you with these, hyper aggressive cards. And I really do expect this. I think that Tom Ross, Michael Majors, Jerry Thompson have all talked about this deck, and because of that SEG player group having a huge impact on what gets played, I think that we can expect to see those cards just week 1 out of the gate. I do think that aggro got a lot of things when Reflector Mage left. Having that huge tempo hit against an aggro deck where you slow them down, 2 times, basically by bouncing the creature and being able to block with a relatively high toughness creature was a big problem for aggro decks. So having Reflector Mage leaves, it's going to first of all help them, and second of all, the deck did actually get new tools in the form of Shock and the new Mimic. So definitely could be something that you should expect to see. I would almost say this deck could win the first week if people aren't prepared for it. Next up, I have Bristling Hydra decks on decks that I think that you can expect to see. Sean McLaren was a big proponent of a Rug midrange deck that played Bristling Hydra and Tireless Tracker and Long Tusk Cub and Whirl of Virtuoso right before the Pro Tour. And the thing is that the deck's problem is that it couldn't really compete with the Emrakul decks in the long game, which is a problem a lot of midrange decks had going before the bannings. And one of the things that we have here is Emrakul is gone. So I expect 2 kinds of Bristling Hydra decks. I expect the aggro ones, and I expect the mid-range ones. And I think that the decks will get a lot better when they don't have to worry about their energy being used up by another Emrakul, or having an Emrakul go over the top of them. I think that Pummeler got a lot better where it was a tier 2 deck before. It might break into tier 1 now with some of the new things and toys that it got. And then I think that there are other mid-range energy creatures that might see play this weekend and might be something you have to be prepared for. But I think Bristling Hydra will be a huge part of that, as it will combat both aggro decks, mid-range decks, and control decks. It's basically good in every matchup. So that's where I would expect a lot of energy decks to go. If you look at the first Pro Tour, you saw Bristling Hydra out of even Marvel decks in the hands of, I think it was Yuya Watanabe. So definitely take a look at that. Next up, I have Jeskai Control. I think that this deck is well positioned right now. I think that there will be a lot of mid-range decks and aggro decks trying to come at each other that are now not worried about Reflector Mage and Emrakul. And with Flash gone, Jeskai Control gains a lot of ground. Not having to worry about the Flash decks as much means that people will flock to this deck. It did very well at the first Pro Tour. And that was when people didn't expect a lot of Flash, and when Flash came in, this deck kind of went away. And I expect now that Flash is basically dead, hopefully, that this deck will come back with a vengeance and be the control deck that people are hoping to play in this format. Next up, I have Copycat. So I do think that Copycat decks will be a real thing that people try and play, and you need to be prepared for them. For those who don't know, the Copycat combo, the way it works is you have a Saheeli Rai and a Felidar Guardian. When Felidar Guardian enters the battlefield, it exiles a permanent you control and then returns it to the battlefield. Because of that, Saheeli Rai can minus, target the Felidar Guardian, come back into play with new counters. It's a new Saheeli Rai. It can minus again, targeting another Felidar Guardian, and then it can repeat this process until you have as many Felidar Guardians as you need to kill your opponent. I've seen this in Pam Harmonicon list. I've seen this in Black lists with Tezzeret. I've seen this in green lists. I've seen this in Jeskai control lists. It's definitely something that people are trying to figure out, as it's a very powerful 2-card combo. And I think that they will, and I think that you should expect to be this and be able to beat it. Otherwise, it could take you by surprise, and you could have a real problem going into week 1. Next up, I have the Panharmonicon decks. This deck was a very good deck going into the last couple weeks of the last format, and it didn't really lose much other than Reflector Mage. And the thing is that while Reflector Mage is a big loss, I think that you can expect that without Emrakul, this deck could still gain a lot of grounds, and I think that it's still an okay deck. It also fits really well with the Saheeli Rai combo. Saheeli bouncing things that have creating new things that have enter the battlefield effects with Panharmonicon in play is really powerful. It gets you even more triggers off your Panharmonicon. I would expect this deck to see some amount of play. I'm not sure how people will build it, but it's definitely something to look forward at going forward. Next up, we have Aetherworks Marvel. I don't know how good this deck is anymore. I've seen a lot of people talking about it, though. They've talked about the new whale. They've talked about just going back to Ulamogs, just playing a more rug-heavy version. Now that you don't have to worry about flash, those rug-heavy versions might just be great. And this is something that you should worry about. As unfun as playing against Jabberwocky's version of Emrakul was, I promise you it's less fun to play against an early Ulamog as exiling your lands and then just attacking you really quickly, as it's a really hard to deal with threat. I would expect this deck to see some amount of play, and it would be something that you should definitely be prepared for moving forward. I don't know if this deck will stick around, but if it does, be prepared for it, because people like casting their big things really quickly, and Aetherworks Marvel really does a good job of that. And the whale lets you reload really quickly. You could still incorporate some of what Jabberwocky did with Chandra and Ishkana. Chandra is a really good ramp. You could have a Worldbreaker version, just looking at different things that might be really good in the deck. So now then I have decks that I think gained a lot from the bans that weren't decks previously, that people aren't talking about as much. The 2 decks that I have are Emerge decks and Green-White Tokens. Green-White Tokens was a huge deck before in an earlier format. And really all it lost was Dromoka's Command, which is a huge hit. Dromoka's Command was probably the best card in the deck. But I think the real reason the deck hadn't started to see play was because Bant Company really got stronger with Spell Queller. And then Spell Queller decks stayed a thing, and then they even got Smuggler's Copter. And then Emrakul was also a problem for the deck. Being able to take their turn and just kind of wreck them was a big problem for tokens, as it had gained incremental advantage in small amounts throughout the game, and then you kind of just take all of that away when you casted Emrakul. So all of those things kind of add up to this deck might be able to be good again. And one of the things that it did get is it got things like Thalia that it didn't get to use in the last set because of not being a deck. And then it also got Walking Ballista, which does some pretty neat stuff in this deck. It still, like Reflector Mage, lets you flip your Avacyn for free, and then it also keeps the Copycat combo in check and does some other things. I think that the deck has all of the pieces it needs still. It's still got its Nissas and its Gideons, Avacyns, ways to flip Avacyn. I think the deck is just overall really strong, and I think that this is something that we could see, if not week 1, maybe going into the Pro Tour. Next up, we have the Emerge decks. These decks were really actually popular at the Pro Tour, whether it was Teamer Emerge, Grixis Emerge, or Blue-Green Emerge. I mean, come on, Elder Deep Fiend's a really powerful Magic card, and if you're wondering why you didn't see it, after the Pro Tour, it is because of Reflector Mage. Reflector Mage was so good against just the creatures that you were playing. If you play a creature, it gets Reflector Mage, and then you're stuck with that card that you can't play, and your Emerge creatures, you're at a really big disadvantage against this tempo deck, is you have to then play the creature again, and you're so far behind at that point, you didn't really have a chance to play any Magic. With Reflector Mage gone, I don't actually think the Spell Queller will be enough to keep this deck down by itself, as Reflector Mage hit the Emerge creature as well, putting you back all over again. I think that this is going to be something that people will actually try relatively quickly. Unlike tokens, I think that people want to be doing this really badly, and I think that they'll recognize how good Reflector Mage was against it, and it's going to be something you could see. I could be wrong here, I could be throwing smoke, but I really do expect to see Emerge decks coming out strong even week 1, and it should be something that you are ready to see, and you should be thinking Elder Deep Fiend when you see an early threat that doesn't really make a lot of sense. As far as what will win week 1, I would say that the aggro decks have a really good shot. I think that aggro typically has a good shot week 1. I don't think people have played against a super hyper-aggressive deck in a very long time outside of Pummeler, and that's decks very different than these go-wide decks that I think that people will be adopting. Because of that, I think that if there are not enough Kozilek's returns out there, or Radiant Flames, or different Wrath effects, or, the black one. What's the new black language called? The one that casts 3-drop. If there's not enough of those effects around, you could really see a resurgence in hyper-aggressive decks early on until people adjust their sideboard or their main decks for that. The other thing that I could see happening relatively early is just a really solid, all well-tuned, all-around control deck like Jeskai really taking the tournament by storm, because I think Torrential Gearhulk is super powerful. We haven't seen a ton of it, and I think that it could just be the thing that takes over the format. I think that there are a few things that I think about Jeskai. I think Jeskai has the best cards to beat aggro and mid-range and combo. And probably not the best in the control mirror, but I don't think you're going to have to play a lot of control mirrors early in the format. Because of that, I would expect Jeskai Control to also be a deck that could do really well week 1 and take over the event. That is it for this week. Those are my thoughts going into week 1. I'm probably going to be wrong about a lot of it, but hopefully I'm right about a lot of it and it's helpful for you. You can leave a comment, leave a like, let me know what you think about the video. Thank you everybody for watching this week. Don't forget to check us out every week. This video is on puremtgo.com, mtgotraders.com. You can also find it on the Constructive Criticism YouTube channel, along with some other great content. You can also check out the podcast at constructivecriticism.com, as well as Limited Time Only. Our limited podcast is also on that website. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys all next week.